is still hugely untapped. So if you think about payments, for example, what's the percentage of payments that are digital? What percentage are cash? If you look at financial inclusion, what percentage of the population is still excluded? If you look at insurance, for example, what percentage of population have access to insurance? Lending, the population that has access to lending compared to the rest of the world is still very low. So the way we think about it is that the potential is still huge. What we're seeing is more of a correction for the hype. You know, there was a huge hype about growth prospects and, you know, issues around, some issues were not factored, like the local currencies, volatility around the local currencies and devaluation and all those things. So I think it's more of correction for that, of course, with the macro impact, but there's still huge opportunity out there. And I expect that once we get past this correction phase, we should see investment flowing into tap into that opportunity.
Yeah, I think building on top of that, I definitely agree with that. I think there's so much more to build of that potential, right? So laying out the infrastructure, continuing to build deeper and wider infrastructure, embedding payments within the customer journey, building beautiful products on top of it on the consumer ecosystem and the merchant ecosystem, and then connecting the African continent and Africa to the world. Part of that vision that I think all of us have, I think the opportunity there is just, we're only accelerating, I think. I think obviously there's been an outpouring of investments, valuations have gone up, and this next phase will probably, be more focused on a lot of the, the fundamentals, the business model, the economics, path to profitability, all of that. But a lot of opportunities to continue to build, a lot of opportunities, I think, in B2B and building out that infrastructure, partnering with the right companies from the back end to the front end to the consumer merchant ecosystems. And then on top of that, I just think it's a really great opportunity for partnerships, for collaboration among all of us in the ecosystem.
So if I chime in, again, I think that 41% or the 40% drop we see, I think is also very linked to the global, environment right now. So in Q1, I think global venture capital dropped by 41% compared to the year before. Actually, it's actually less, or it's actually more if you take out like OpenAI and I think one other company that raised like billions of dollars in funding. Yeah, obviously, if you see what's happening in the States, 75% of the funding that comes into Africa is not from Africa, right? It's from the US, it's from, and so, with the interest rates having gone up, investors just prefer to leave their money in the bank, right? And it's like, so I think that's where it's coming from. I think it's probably less of fintech investments dropping in Africa and just reflective of like what's going on like in the whole global ecosystem. The opportunity is huge. So I doubt that investors are just taking their money out, just like where the market is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think from a different angle, talking about Egypt, for example, we have seen major changes happening in the market in the past 5 years. So in 2017, when we started, everyone in fintech was actually in payments. So at this time, we only had 2 payment companies, and the 2 has raised enough funding to grow very well. And then we started talking to customers for the first time. So we started seeing fintech like us and other players, of course, that are focused on lending for the first time in Egypt. And then there was different models like buy now, pay later, consumer finance, and everything. And and there was an angle for fintech for everything. So even in logistics, even in B2B, everything, there was an angle for fintech. And this is where the money actually was thrown to those companies. Unfortunately, out of those companies couldn't continue the process because everyone was really worried about only growth. So when we sit with VCs, everything that they wanted to see how far we're growing month over month, week over week, and day over day. The change that we have seen in the past year and a half, 2 years, because we did our first fundraising outside EFGMS, which was our incubator for a long period of time, was actually from family offices and strategic investors. We've seen a lot of changes happening currently in Egypt. So we see less VC funding and we see more PE funding. So the companies that are capable and are growing at scale without compromising on unit economics, and they are in the green when it comes to their P&L. We've seen a lot of PEs coming in, and recently Forbes Middle East had 30 companies in the Middle East that are Fintech top 30 companies. 8 of them were Egyptian. Most of those companies are profitable, and PEs are mostly considering or have already put money into those companies. This is a major change from a VC life to a PE life.
I think it's an excellent point. We've certainly seen the rise of debt financing as well, in addition to equity. And I like your point about products beyond payments that are starting to proliferate. So that's one of the aspects of breadth that's increasing, right? So more products alongside payments. But I want to get a little into depth. So in terms of where I cut my teeth on all this, I used to be at the Gates Foundation, where we did a lot of work trying to understand how deep fintech actually went within a certain income or income segments. So my next question, let's start because I know she can handle it. How deep has fintech really gotten within your respective markets when it comes to customers outside of the top income segments? And when you think about the growth of fintech in the future, how big is financial inclusion as a story going forward?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, if we think about M-Pesa in Kenya sort of being the original like fintech in enabling large-scale peer-to-peer payments, that is what I would consider last mile. So can I just go pay for something on the street and use my phone to pay the person that I'm buying, a bottle of water from? And when I think about some of the businesses that our organizations are running, that's sort of at the other end of the spectrum, which is more large scale B2B fintech enablement and payments enablement in some cases, or lending. So I think that it's kind of a question of like, what segment are you focusing on when you're trying to build, let's say, a venture scaled fintech organization? Are you focusing on that sort of P2P use case, or are you focusing on the larger scale end of the spectrum B2B enablement through infrastructure? Those are two very different sort of product sets and almost like company cultures and philosophies that you might need to run those organizations, run those types of businesses successfully. So I think that we're seeing more players expand beyond just that initial use case into the adjacent ones. But I do think that we're still at the earliest stages of vision, right? So some specific examples, as you were saying, mobile money platforms, digital wallets. That's something that's kind of a big part of, Flutterwave's business that we care a lot about, and will continue to, develop and grow and help on that. Other businesses, kind of, if we look at the offline space, POS, agency network, cash in, cash out, businesses that, have are digitizing traditionally very manual processes. These are a lot of these businesses out there that are doing really innovative things. And, Flutterwave, we love to be a part of that. We power the payments back end of it. How do we contribute our part of that ecosystem? And then I think one thing I'd really love to mention is also, at Flutterwave, part of it is also, helping individuals and small businesses just to get online and transact in the first place. Right. So no matter where you are, if you're an individual in not a city center, or not, however, geography, being able to tap into that global customer base and being able to, sell whatever you want online, and we help you do that. We help you, set up a website and be able to transact and get paid. I think listening to some of those stories, that's really powerful too. And that's kind of part of our vision of simplifying payments and kind of tap into that.
Financial inclusion through this access, like targeting banking, this informal MSM segment. Yeah. Again, obviously, from my perspective, the biggest issue with financial inclusion is distribution, right? Is the cost of reaching those customers, and so it's the same problem in insurance. So in the continent, penetration is at like 2-point-something%. Is a comparison with a GDP. So this is like maybe 30% of the global average. And again, when you like look at like maybe let's take Nigeria, like health insurance penetration is like maybe 6%. So what that means is that was the population, right?